Hey, what's up? So, on this hot summer day, I'd like to talk a little bit about progressive overload and give you my thoughts on the topic and specifically how my feelings towards progressive overload have evolved as I moved on from my novice phase now into my intermediate lifting phase. So, first of all, progressive overload I think is an absolutely fundamental concept when it comes to bodybuilding, but also strength. So if you're doing the exact same thing in the gym week after week with no change, your body is eventually going to adapt to that and you're going to stop making progress. So if you want to keep moving towards your goals, you need to in some way be advancing in your training, whether your goals are hypertrophy or strength. So I think the most common forms of progressive overload, which we all know and you're probably all using, is adding weight to the bar or adding more reps to your sets. And this was completely revolutionary to me when I finally understood this concept. Once it was explained to me and I started using it in my workouts, that's when I actually started making progress and I started to build up my physique at that point. But I think progressive overload is a bit more nuanced than that, and especially once you get into your intermediate phase, you need to start looking at progressive overload a little bit differently. So I'm going to give you a specific example about my bicep curls. So about 5 months ago, I was actually curling more weight than I am currently. Now, what does that actually mean? Have my arms gotten smaller? No, they've actually gotten bigger. Have I not progressively overloaded my curls over the last 5 months? I have, and this is how. So there are other forms of progressive overload, right? You have people talking about doing pauses, taking shorter rests, adding in more sets. I'm sure you guys have heard of all of these, but there's one specifically which I have really been focusing in on over the last couple months and have seen great results with, and that is simply, I'm going to call it improving your form. So the reason my biceps have gotten bigger, even though I'm curling less weight than I was 5 months ago, is because I'm curling with better form. So when I started moving out of my novice phase, this happened when I really started to plateau. So for a while, it was literally every week I could just add weight on the bar and it was just coming naturally. I was making so many gains. The stimulus was all new. My body was adapting to it quickly. And then I started hitting plateaus. And in order to break through those plateaus, in order to keep adding weight onto the bar, which is what I was used to doing in the beginning, I started to slowly sacrifice my form. And that is not a proper way to train. It's not a sustainable way to train, and it's not really progressive overload because you're not actually you are increasing weight on the bar, but you're doing it by sacrificing your form, which means you're not actually putting more tension on the muscle. You're maybe just using momentum, which is what I was doing with my bicep curls. So I was curling more and more and more weight, but it got to the point where I was just using momentum. So I was sort of swinging like this, and I was using the momentum of my body to get the weight up. But it was very difficult for me in terms of my ego to actually, stay on the same weight or even drop the weight back to what I was using months previously in order to work my way up with better form. But when it comes to bodybuilding, and especially once you become an intermediate, that's what you have to do. It's not that progressive overload stops, it just slows down tremendously at some point. It becomes very slow. You might have to use the same weight for months and months at a time. But what you can do, workout to workout, is try and improve your form. So the way to do this specifically, I would recommend is filming your sets. So, maybe every week pick an exercise, film the set, and compare it to what it looked like previously. Make sure your form is consistent, and not just consistent, try and improve on your form. And improving your form is in and of itself a type of progressive overload. Even if it takes you several months to be able to bump up the weight, it's worth it to really take your time, really focus in on your form, and just remember that the form always has to come before the weight on the bar. That is always more important, and the form can never be sacrificed in order to add weight on. That is just a core principle of bodybuilding. And if you go down that road where you're sacrificing your form to add weight, you're just going to get yourself injured, and you're just going to have worse results in the long run. So be patient. Don't worry about how much weight you're actually using. Just make sure that your form is consistent or even improving week to week. All right, thank you guys for watching, and see you.